Japan has been continuously inhabited for more than 30,000 years, and most of the world pictures it as one thing, a nation that preserves its history, where every ancient site is maintained, catalogued, and open to visitors. That picture is wrong. Japan is covered in places that were abandoned so long ago that no living person knows who built them, who lived there, or why they left. These are not ruins that have been restored and photographed for guidebooks. These are places where the forest grew over the walls, the roads disappeared under moss, and the names of the settlements were forgotten. There is a castle in Hyogo Prefecture that has been abandoned for more than 400 years and is often called the Machu Picchu of Japan because of how the ruins emerge from the morning mist. There is a city in Iwate Prefecture that was once the wealthiest in northern Japan and is now a village of 3,000 people, surrounded by the foundations of a metropolis that vanished. There is an island south of Tokyo that held 2 fishing villages for centuries and now has 0 residents, the houses still standing exactly where they were built. Stay for number 1, because that one is a settlement that has been abandoned for so long that archaeologists are still arguing about whether it was Japanese, Ainu, or something older. Consider how deep the ancient abandoned record runs. The Agency for Cultural Affairs maintains a registry of more than 450 designated historic ruins across Japan, the majority of which have never been fully excavated. The Nara National Research Institute for Cultural Properties has documented more than 500 abandoned settlement sites in the Kii Peninsula alone, many dating to the Heian and Kamakura periods. Later came the Sengoku Civil Wars, then the Meiji abolition of the domains, then the post-war rural depopulation, each wave emptying towns and villages that never recovered. The question with almost every site is the same: who lived here, when did they leave, and why did nobody come back? Number 11. Takeda Castle stands on a mountain ridge in Asago, Hyogo Prefecture. It was built in the 15th century by the Yamana clan and expanded through the 16th century. The castle was a military installation controlling the Tajima region. After the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600, the castle was abandoned under the Tokugawa government's policy of limiting fortifications to 1 per domain. The wooden superstructure rotted away over the following decades and centuries. What remains is the stone foundations, walls spanning the entire mountain ridge, rising up to 30 meters in places, covering an area of roughly 100 by 400 meters. The castle has been abandoned for more than 400 years. Trees grew through the courtyards, moss covered the stonework. The walls were not maintained and were not studied until the 20th century. In the 1970s, the ruins were rediscovered by hikers, and photographs of the stone walls emerging from morning mist earned the site the name Machu Picchu of Japan. The comparison is visual, not historical. Takeda was a military castle, not an imperial city. But the sight of the ruins floating above the cloud line, walls and foundations extending across the ridge with no modern structure visible, gives the impression of a place that was abandoned by its builders and forgotten by its descendants. The site is now maintained as a tourist destination, but the majority of the stone walls remain unrestored, exactly as they were left 4 centuries ago. Number 10. Hiraizumi in Iwate Prefecture was once the wealthiest city in northern Japan. At its peak in the 12th century, under the northern Fujiwara clan, Hiraizumi was a cultural and political capital said to rival Kyoto in splendor. The city covered a vast area and contained elaborate temples, gardens, and administrative complexes. The Chusanji Temple, built by Fujiwara no Kiyohira in 1124, contained buildings covered in gold leaf and housed the mummified remains of 3 generations of Fujiwara lords. The city was destroyed in 1189 when Minamoto no Yoritomo's forces defeated the Fujiwara. The political center never recovered. The temples survived in reduced form, but the residential quarters, the administrative buildings, and the artisan districts were abandoned. For centuries, the ruins lay under farmland. Modern Hiraizumi has a population of roughly 2,400. The foundations of the 12th century metropolis extend for kilometers beyond the modern town boundaries. In 2011, Hiraizumi was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List for its temples and gardens, but the vast majority of the original city remains underground, unexcavated, and largely unexplored. Number 9. Hachijo Kojima is a small island south of Hachijojima in the Izu Islands chain, administered as part of Tokyo. The island held 2 fishing hamlets, Toriuchi in the northeast and Utsuki in the southwest. These hamlets had been continuously inhabited for centuries. The population was small, never exceeding roughly 300. In 1965, the remaining residents voted to abandon the island, citing the lack of electricity, health care, and schools. The entire population was relocated to Hachijo and the mainland. Hachijo Kojima has had 0 residents since 1965. The houses still stand. The harbor walls are intact. The stone foundations of the shrines remain. The roads between the 2 hamlets are still visible, overgrown but passable. The island has been effectively frozen for 60 years, and because it is administered as part of Tokyo but has no ferry service or regular access, almost no one visits. The houses are slowly collapsing under the weight of vegetation and typhoons, but the basic layout of both villages is still recognizable. Number 8. The Ainu kotan, traditional settlements of the indigenous Ainu people, once dotted the landscape of Hokkaido, the Kuril Islands, and southern Sakhalin. The Ainu are the indigenous people of northern Japan, with a distinct language, religion, and material culture that predates the arrival of the Yamato Japanese. Before the Meiji government's assimilation policies in the late 19th century, Ainu communities lived in riverside settlements called kotan, built around salmon fishing, deer hunting, and trade. The Meiji government confiscated Ainu lands, banned traditional hunting and fishing practices, and forced Ainu children into Japanese language schools. The kotan were abandoned, the thatched houses collapsed, the fishing weirs rotted. Today, fewer than a handful of reconstructed kotan exist as cultural preservation sites, and the original settlement locations, dozens of them across Hokkaido, are unmarked and overgrown. The Japanese government did not formally recognize the Ainu as an indigenous people until 2019. The abandoned kotan represent the most complete erasure of a settlement culture in Japanese history. Number 7. The Kumano Sanzan is a complex of 3 grand shrines in the Kii Peninsula of Wakayama Prefecture: the Kumano Hongu Taisha, the Kumano Hayatama Taisha, and the Kumano Nachi Taisha. The shrines themselves are still active, but the surrounding landscape contains the remains of an extensive pilgrimage infrastructure that has been largely abandoned for centuries. Between the 11th and 14th centuries, the Kumano pilgrimage routes, collectively known as the Kumano Kodo, carried emperors, aristocrats, and commoners through the mountains of the Kii Peninsula. Along the routes stood pilgrim lodges, way stations, subsidiary shrines, and monk quarters. When the pilgrimage declined during the Sengoku period in the 15th and 16th centuries, the infrastructure was abandoned. The subsidiary shrines collapsed. The pilgrim lodges rotted. The mountain paths were reclaimed by the forest. The Kumano Kodo was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List in 2004, and some sections of the path have been cleared, but the majority of the original infrastructure, the hundreds of way stations and subsidiary shrines that once lined the route, have been abandoned for 500 years and have never been archaeologically surveyed. Number 6. Oka Castle in Takeda, Oita Prefecture, on the island of Kyushu, was built in the late 12th century and expanded over 400 years into one of the largest mountain castle complexes in eastern Kyushu. The castle was a multi-bailey fortification spread across a mountain ridge, with stone walls, gatehouses, and a central keep. After the Meiji Restoration in 1868, the castle was decommissioned under the Castle Abolition Ordinance. The wooden structures were dismantled or left to decay. Only the stone walls and foundations remained. The site has been abandoned for more than 150 years. The composer Rintaro Taki visited the ruins in 1901 and was inspired to write the song Kojo no Tsuki, Moon Over the Ruined Castle, which became one of the most famous Japanese songs of the 20th century. The ruins cover a vast area, but most of the baileys are overgrown and unrestored. The stone walls are unstable. Trees grow from the crevices. The castle has been frozen in its decayed state for a century and a half. If the centuries-old abandoned places of Japan are news to you, drop a like and stay with it. Because number 5 is a city that was destroyed by a tsunami in the 9th century and has been buried under farmland ever since. Number 5. Tagajo in Miyagi Prefecture was a fortified administrative center built by the Yamato court in the 8th century as the seat of government for the Mutsu province. It was a substantial complex with administrative buildings, storehouses, and military installations. In the 9th century, a major tsunami devastated the Sendai Plain, destroying Tagajo. Archaeological investigations have identified the remains of 8th and 9th century buildings buried under alluvial sediment across the site. The tsunami deposits cover the original structures. After the tsunami, the administrative center was not rebuilt at the same location. The site was abandoned and converted to farmland. The ruins were not identified until the 20th century, when archaeologists discovered the buried foundations during construction work. The site is now a designated National Historic Ruin, but the majority of the original complex remains underground, sealed beneath more than 1,000 years of sediment and rice paddies. Number 4. The Gassan Mountain Temple Complex in Yamagata Prefecture was once one of the most important religious sites in northern Japan. The three mountains of Dewa, Gassan, Haguro, and Yudono were centers of Shugendo, a mountain ascetic tradition that combined Buddhist and Shinto practice. The Gassan Temple Complex, at an elevation of roughly 1,900 meters, was a substantial facility with lodgings, meditation halls, and ritual structures. The complex operated from the Heian period through the Edo period. After the Meiji government's separation of Buddhism and Shinto in 1868, many Shugendo sites were dismantled. The Gassan Temple Complex was partially destroyed. The remaining structures were abandoned as the number of practicing Shugendo ascetics dwindled. The stone foundations remain at the summit, exposed to extreme weather for more than a century. The mountain is accessible only from July through September due to snow. The temple ruins sit above the tree line, surrounded by alpine vegetation, and have been abandoned for more than 150 years. Number 3. Hachijo Royal Resort. On Hachijojima, in the Izu Islands, administered as part of Tokyo, was built in 1967 during Japan's resort development boom. It was a French Baroque-style luxury hotel, an incongruous European palace on a subtropical volcanic island, roughly 170 miles south of Tokyo. The hotel operated for roughly 20 years before declining attendance forced its closure. It was abandoned in the late 1980s. The building, a massive multi-story concrete structure with ornate balustrades and crumbling stucco facades, has been standing empty for nearly 40 years. The lobby is filled with debris, the swimming pool is dry and cracked, the guest rooms still have furniture. The hotel was never demolished because the cost of removing a concrete structure of that size from an island with limited construction infrastructure was prohibitive. The French palace, slowly being consumed by tropical vegetation on a volcanic island, has been abandoned longer than it was ever in operation. Number 2. Totsukawa Village in Nara Prefecture is the largest village in Japan by area, covering more land than the entire 23 wards of Tokyo. 96% of its territory is forest. In August of 1889, a massive flood devastated the village. Rivers changed course. Hillsides collapsed. Entire hamlets were buried under debris. The disaster was so severe that a large portion of the surviving population emigrated to Hokkaido under a government resettlement program and founded a new village there, leaving the original hamlets abandoned. The remains of the pre-flood settlement sites are still visible in the forest, stone walls, foundation platforms, and roadbeds, now overgrown. The Totsukawa flood was one of the most destructive localized disasters of the Meiji era, and the hamlets it destroyed have been abandoned for more than 130 years. The forest has reclaimed everything except the stone, and the stone is crumbling. Number 1. The Sannai Maruyama site in Aomori Prefecture is a Jomon period settlement that was occupied from approximately 3500 before Christ to 2000 before Christ, a span of 1,500 years. The settlement covered a substantial area and contained pit dwellings, storage pits, burial grounds, and the mysterious six-post structure whose purpose has never been determined. Around 2000 before Christ, the settlement was abandoned. The reason is not known. The Jomon period did not end in this area at that time, but this specific site, one of the largest and most complex Jomon settlements ever discovered, was emptied. The population did not die out. They did not migrate. They simply left, and the site was not reoccupied. For approximately 4,000 years, the settlement lay under the ground, forgotten. It was discovered in 1992 during preliminary surveys for a baseball stadium construction project. The discovery forced a rewrite of Japanese prehistory. The excavations revealed a level of engineering and social organization that had not been previously attributed to hunter-gatherer societies. The most unsettling aspect of Sannai Maruyama is not what was found there. It is that a settlement occupied for 1,500 years, large enough to house hundreds of people, sophisticated enough to engineer 15-meter wooden structures, could be abandoned and then completely forgotten for 4,000 years. No oral tradition preserved its memory. No historical record mentioned it. No one knew it had existed until a construction crew broke ground for a baseball stadium. Japan was never only preserved temples and maintained gardens. People built cities in the north, castles on ridges, and settlements in the mountains, then walked away and left them to be swallowed by the forest and the earth. 11 abandoned places, and not one of them has been fully explained. And how many more lie undiscovered beneath the soil and the trees is its own open question. If you want to see the centuries-old abandoned places of Japan documented one by one, this is the channel that does it.